So I'm going to build this poster. All right, so I want to make this 11 by 17, and I'm going to put my margins I'm going to put on this are 0.37. So I'm going to link this, and I'm going to just put it on 1 because it's linked. So it'll fill them all out. Bleed, always put bleed in case you decide to use it. It doesn't matter if it's there. And I'm going to create this. Notice that there's no slug. And then I'm going to paste all the copy. So I'm going to place Tarzan text, and I've given you access to this. So this is the whole chunk of text that I have. So the first thing I want to do is apply anything that I know to be true of all the text, just to save myself some time. So I know that I'm going to use Helvetica New Light Standard on this, and I know I'm going to make it all caps, all of it. So I'll put that in there, and then I'll just drag this off, and I'll just kind of feed off of it. I'm going to drag this over here. So you want to make the least amount of text boxes as possible, but there's sometimes are reasons you need separate boxes. So this headline, we actually do need a separate box. So I'm going to make a box just for the headline, and that's this whole chunk up here. I'm going to set this in here, paste it, and now you remember your shortcuts, right? So to make this type bigger on the keyboard, I just do what? Shift Command greater than, greater than, greater than, greater than. Just going to get this in the ballpark. And I want to make this type all the same width. So Theater on the James Presents, I'm going to make this piece here 45. And I want this type actually a little heavier. So I want all this type extra heavier. So Theater on the James Presents, I'm going to make that 45. And I can go up 5. And I want the leading on that to be 48. So I don't want to use the auto leading, 48. And then Tarzan is obviously the big main important focus. So I want to make that huge. So Tarzan, I'm going to make like probably 200. See if I go out to the width of Theater on the James Presents. That's pretty good. Normally, you guys want to put the different text boxes for these so that it's easy to just bump them all up together, but I would rather you use the type tools and keep them all in one box. So you just have to remember that leading, when you're adjusting leading, it actually is the space above when you're doing this kind of type fitting. So I'm just going to take this to a much smaller number. It's negative leading. And also, I want to make these all the same width, but I'm not centering them. I'm making them aligned left, and I'm just going to draw this guide, and I want them to all end at the same place over here. If I center it, which ultimately it will look centered, but if I center it while I'm trying to size all this, what happens is instead of moving something a little towards your goal, it's moving at both sides. And it can be really hard to get this to kind of pan out. So Tarzan, I only need that to go just a tiny bit more. And I'm noticing the spacing is bad between the Z and the A. So I'm actually going to put my cursor there, and I'm going to use this tool, which is above the tracking, and that's the kerning. So I'm going to just go a little bit positive on that. And I have a feeling that will help bump me out. Maybe one more click. I still need more, so maybe I'll put a little spacing here. And now we're almost there, so I'll add a little bit. So because these letters are so huge, I'm just manually bumping this space using this tool right here, which is the kerning. Kerning is between individual letters. You don't have to highlight anything. So rather than grabbing this whole line of text, Tarzan, and adjusting the tracking on it, I'm individually adjusting the letters, partly because they're so big. When they're that large, you really have to take hold of it. All right, so the stage musical, that's going to have to go quite a bit bigger. So I'll just keep bumping it out until it gets there. I think better to go under, right? And this one, because it's smaller type, I can use tracking on this. So I'm just going to bump the tracking out, and you can see it's in increments of 10 and 20. And remember that Option plus the right and left arrows is your tracking. But do you see the increments it's going by? Look up here. Do you see up here? Every time I hit Option and the arrow to the right, it's bumping by 20. That's not really allowing for slight noodling of the tracking. So let me show you where you can change that. Go to Preferences, and we want to go to Units and Increments. And do you see right here where it says Keyboard Increments? All these things that I'm teaching you to do with the shortcuts, these are the increments. So kerning and tracking, I don't want that by, I want it by 10, maybe even 5. And then sizing and letting, you can change it so it only does increments of 1. So that means that every time that you increase it, it only goes a little at a time. So now when I do this, it goes to 30, see, better. So now I'll go to 10, and I'll probably have to increase that by hand, 12, let's say 13. And then remember the letting, the space between Tarzan and the stage musical, I can adjust that with the letting because it goes to the cap height. So I get that as close as looks comfortable. And then based on the Disney film, same thing. I'm going to pop that out there, and notice it's going incrementally. I'm using Shift Command and the greater than, and it's going by 2 points at a time. So if you want to change that, you can go to your increment. So this looks pretty good. I would say, if anything, I'll just add 1 or maybe 4. Okay, and that looks good. And then also use the letting. Anytime that you can avoid having to put different text boxes, you should, because it's one more thing that you have to keep track of. It's one more thing that you have to make sure that you've spaced everything evenly and all that. So now that I've got this all sized the way I want, I can center it. Okay, so I've got that part easy. Now I've got some information here about, I'm going to put a return here to separate it. There's that information and then that information. So this information is all looks like medium stuff to me. The date, how much, and who scored it. So let's grab all that. And I'm going to make a text box. Now, because I want to make this left and right aligned, I'm going to have to put it in 2 different text boxes on the edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is, of course, make this big. And I'm going to change 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I want to break that. So it says 7 p.m. January, and then 23rd, 24th, and 25th. But I don't want to break the paragraph style. I don't want to start a new paragraph style because I might want to do some spacing and stuff. So I'm just going to hit Shift Return. That creates a forced break without creating a new return. And the way you can see this is go to Type, Show Hidden Characters. Every time there's a paragraph return, it's going to apply the style all the way to there, and then it's going to start it again, apply it all the way to there. So in the middle of a little chunk of copy, you don't want to start a new paragraph style. So that's why this forced break is there. So if you ever want to see how many forced breaks you have as opposed to paragraph returns, it's a good idea before you apply your styles, honestly. Okay, so we want to make this box a little wider. I mean, a little longer. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it over here. So hold the Option key to duplicate it, the Shift key to keep it in line. $5. Okay. Now I've got it. So I put the date on the upper left and the prices on the right, and then the music by and book by. So first I'll style this one, my 7 p.m. January, and I want that to be 67 also. And I want to go 42 is good, but let's go a little less letting, 48. Now I'm going to go to paragraph styles. And the reason why I want to use this as a paragraph style is because I also want to manually put the space between these 2 pieces of copy. So I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So I could call this, so I'm going to hit plus. I want a new style, and I'm going to call this 1. You can call it whatever you want. 1. This is my number 1 text. And then this text over here is also that number 1 text, except for it's flush right. Now, notice when I make that an exception, I made it flush right instead of flush left, it put the plus sign next to the 1. You can leave that there. It's just saying you made a small change, because otherwise you'll have to make a new style sheet for every version of your style sheet that's flush right instead of left. So I'm just going to leave that override. And then this one, right here, I'm going to call that number 1, make it the same, but I don't want it as large. I want it smaller. So I want this to, I'm going to apply that style sheet. It's important to know the order here. I applied the style sheet previous, and then I'm going to make it smaller by doing the shift command. I'm going to go down to, this one should be like 35 over 36. Music and lyrics. And again, I'm going to force break. Now I want to call this a new style. It's not the same, it's new, it's my second one, so I'm going to call this 2. Now, do you notice here what it says? Based on 1. So that means that I've inherited everything in that last chunk of copy except for what has changed. And the only thing that's changed is the size and leading. Same typeface, same everything. So this piece, I'm going to say I want that number 2, except for I want it flush right, same thing, book by, and I'm going to do a soft return. Okay, so that's our number 1 piece of copy, our number 2 piece of copy. Now we just have this chunk down here. And since this is all centered, there is no reason to put this in a separate type box. The last thing you want with something like this is all this text in separate boxes that you have to remember how far spaced they are from each other. I can always tell when someone's kind of new to InDesign when they make a gazillion boxes. So let's take out all this text since we already styled that, and we're left with this. So all we've got to do is, if you want to base this on number 1 and number 2, so 1 and 2 are basically all caps, and they're Helvetica News 67. I got to go fast, we're already at an hour. So you can base those on that by applying your number 1 and then making changes. So now I'm going to go way smaller. And I actually want to go to, this is 21 over 22. And that's for this one. So I'm going to call, and these are all centered. So I'm going to call this one number 3. Number 3, and look what it's based on, number 1. Now, if I don't want to have anything to do with those other style sheets, I can take that off. I can say no paragraph style. But I'll show you why I would want to base those on each other. Okay, so now I just have this. This is the least important. This is the technical stuff. So I'm going to go to my last one, which is number 3, except for I want it to even be smaller than that. So now I'm going to go to like 9 over 10. We'll say that this is stuff we just don't care about at all. And we'll call this number 4. This is our number 4 style. And this one's based on number 3. And now we'll move this box. So you want to keep the way that you build your InDesign document is really important. And I am going to start asking you guys to turn in your InDesign documents at some point so I can see how they're built. So do you see what I've done? I've got a box on top in the center going up to the margin. I have 2 boxes, the one that is flush left, the one that's flush right. And then I have this one down here that has all the copies stacked. That's a well-built file. Now I can move these down here, and I can put in the colors. So the background color, I like to put that on a lower layer. So I'm going to go to layers, and I'm going to hit new layer. You don't have to do a lot of layers in InDesign, but I like the background on one just because number 1, I might want to try more than one background. Number 2, I want to easily turn it on and off and lock it without having to use a command. So this background layer, so all the type is here. And once you get more than one layer, you got to name them. So I'm going to call that type. This is the background. And for the background, I'm just going to make a box that goes to the bleed. And I'm going to make a color from this. Go to swatches. And I know what color I want, and I'm just going to type it in. New color swatch, and it is, this is so much easier when I used to have to build stuff in. So I'm just going to call this its name. I do that because the whole list of numbers is based on, it names it with color value, and I want this one to stand out. This is my teal. This is my custom number. So you see here on the swatches how teal is written out. That's kind of my heads up that I made this color. Now we have everything kind of laid out, but it's very dark. I want you to see what happens when I go, just not because I would use it this way, but I just want to show you what happens when I make a change. And I hope this works. I really hope this works because it'd be cool. First of all, you can change the order of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So whatever is based on number 1 should change when I make the character color white. So let's see what happened. There we go. In case you were wondering, why is she basing that? Why is she connecting those style sheets? I connected them because then if I want to change them, I can just change the main parent style sheet. So keep that in mind. Now let's get out our character styles and use them for what they're good for. So now I need to kind of decide some hierarchy, because look at, if I make this all white, I mean, Tarzan has a good chance because it's large, it's at the top, that's going to be noticed easily. But I want to apply some colors here. And like I said, I like to do colors from character styles because then I can apply them to more than one place and adjust them that way. So I'm going to put a character style and I'm going to call this text color. And all that's going to be on this, and you'll see that everything's blank. Basic character, do you see how there's nothing in there? That means it doesn't have any information for this type other than one thing, and that's the color. So I'm going to call this text color, and I'm going to do a new color. Oh, I have to put it in the, sorry, I got to put it in the swatches first. It won't let me formulate it there. So let's make a new color for the text. And this is going to be kind of our green on green. So I'm going to call this light green. And this one is 7240. 72. Okay. So now I've got that color in there. Let's open up color style and call this one dark text. And our character color is that teal that we made, light green. And we'll say, okay. Now let's make another one. And this one is light text. Notice I'm not naming them by their color because I might want to change my mind. So I'm going to make this a tint of the light green. And yeah, like 40%. So I've chosen the light green, but this light text is 40%. Now I'll show you how this works out. So let me see my Tarzan. I want to apply it the way I did. So Tarzan the stage musical, I'm going to call that the most important thing. So I'm going to make Tarzan the stage musical light. Theater on the James presents Don't Care, dark. Based on the Disney film, not huge on Disney. We could decide that this is the light text. And of course, light text has higher contrast, right? So that's going to stand out. Now, I don't know about making Phil Collins dark. That seems like a big part of this play, but you could do that way. And then the adaption, we certainly don't care much about that. So I'm going to select that one and call that. And these text boxes are way too deep. They're causing problems. So this text, we can go with dark text because I don't even really care if anyone reads it. So here's the advantage to doing things that way. Now you've assigned your hierarchy, right? Tarzan the stage musical, this is the date, this is the price. But maybe you want to change some of those colors. Like maybe Tarzan, everything that's your top hierarchy, the lighter text, maybe you want to go a little bit lighter. There you go. Or maybe you want to go yellow. Pretty unlikely. Maybe you want to go this green. So you've broken it down by your lighter and darker text. Then you open up dark. Maybe I want to change everything that's dark to blue. Yeah, it's looking worse by the minute. There we go. So I'm going to take it back to what it was because it'll match. But that's the benefit of applying character styles in your color scheme, is that then you can apply them and adjust the colors and see the effect that that has. All right, so now all we got to do is place our head, the Tarzan PNG, and that's pretty much it.